So that's James's dinner or whatever, breakfast. I'm not sure if he's had it, but I overcooked the kale nuggets a bit. Oh well. Next time I do them, it'll be better. But I cooked them, I deep fried them for a change for him in ghee. Oh, I feel terrible today. I'm kicking coffee because I always do this. I think that it's when I was a teenager and discovered coffee. I'd never had coffee before, and I was instantly hooked. And I remembered my mom telling me that when she was waiting for my dad when she was in labor, so that he could take her to the hospital, because they had to drive. We were on the farm, so they had to drive quite a ways. Anyway, so she was waiting for my dad, and she was just up drinking coffee the whole night, drinking coffee. And I thought, I wonder if there's something to that. Like if you're exposed to something in utero, right? Then you become really addicted. And it turns out that there's a lot of little babies that have like crack addictions and stuff like that. It's like, oh, awful. What do you do? Well, you don't do crack when you're pregnant. And you definitely don't have a baby if you've been doing crack while you're pregnant. Planned pregnancy is a good thing. Anyway, I was watching this show, New Amsterdam Season 1, and it's incredible. It's not worth watching. Well, I don't like these hospital dramas. It's funny how they come up, there's always some new popular hospital drama. House to the rescue, he's actually injured and he's hooked on painkillers himself, and he'll understand. Anyway, and then there's this. And it's funny that this comes out. I mean, the Ty Bollinger series was so popular, obviously for a reason, right? And then they come up with this sort of thing. And they're talking, in this they mention a few of the key problems that Americans are having right now, like type 2 diabetes in children, adult onset diabetes in children. And they explain it away with, it's they're the kids on too many medications that are probably not necessary and whatever. And it was just, the school person who was in charge of dealing out their insisting probably that this kid needed medication in order to be in public school, had too many kids to deal with, and this is just, an anomaly, just slips through. Anyway, not an anomaly. This is a major problem in America. And what else was covered in this show? The doctor himself has cancer, and at the beginning, he's in charge of the hospital, and well, I don't know the hierarchy of hospitals and how things work. Anyway, he supervises a bunch of staff. But at the beginning, he fires a whole bunch of qualified physicians because they care about money more than patients. And so he's this big hero, and he has cancer himself, and he's going to go through chemo because chemo really works, and all of this stuff. And the thing is I remember one key thing that people kept saying in the Ty Bollinger series. They kept saying that emergency care in America, United States, but I feel pretty good about the emergency care here in Canada too. Anyway, but I mean, they were saying that emergency care in the United States was awesome, the best you could hope. If you have, if you're in a car accident, you need emergency, you're going to get some good care. So this kept coming up in the Ty Bollinger series. Everybody seemed to agree with that. And the thing is, when my husband, before we were married, he kept going into the doctors. He knew something was very wrong. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. You know, he had psoriasis, and he had blepharitis, and he had a bunch of things going on. And when he'd pee, it was like he was peeing in a Mr. Bubble toilet, you know? Different things, right? But couldn't figure out what was wrong. And he'd have like muscle spasms and stuff, like really get twitching. But the doctors he'd see, they'd do nothing. And then eventually when he finally gets, if he hadn't gotten a doctor from South Africa, he'd be dead, for sure. I think the only doctors that should be practicing like on the family medical level in Canada are from South Africa, frankly. The rest of them are just, anyway. I have a lady right now who's my doctor. I haven't went back to her in a long time because I honestly, I don't think she'll be able to do anything. But she's nice. And she did send me to physio, and there was one exercise that did help quite a lot. But I can't spend all of my time doing that, and then so in order to get relief from it, I'm spending a lot of time doing that exercise. Anyway, so then when do I live? But anyway, doesn't matter. Not about me. But when James was finally diagnosed, he was terminal, and so his kidneys were shutting down and stuff. Like, so it's emergency all of a sudden, and he has to go through the chemo treatment. So that's, and I'm seeing this with people when people are talking to me, oh, got diagnosed and it was an emergency then, and then they go through the chemo and stuff, and it's like, okay, but if you had been diagnosed earlier, maybe chemo wouldn't have been the best treatment, you know? And I think that's actually the key. Oh, I'm really avoiding this. See, what happened is I gave up the coffee this morning. So I feel not good. I have a bad headache and stuff. And I really don't want this, but I put ginger in this. It should help me feel a little better. We'll see if I can keep it down though. Honestly, I feel terrible. This one only looks gross because I did the kale first before the carrot. And so there's some kale stuff in there. But anyway, what else was I going to say about the show? There's a lot of things covered. Like, there was one part where there was homeless man who they were talking about him, and they were like, he has PTSD, and is that right? Post-traumatic, yep. And a bunch of things, and he wanted to, this doctor in charge, he wants to cut the costs of that go to the frequent flyers so that they can help more patients. And this guy, he legitimately needed all of these things because he was homeless, and so he kept having legitimate problems. But and he had PTSD anyway, they'd mentioned. But so he was in a lot, and they'd spent over $1 million a year on his care, and so they were trying to figure out how they could reduce the cost. And he's like, they come up with this great idea of why not get him an apartment so he has a place to live, so that he doesn't need all of this care. And which is, I mean, in this case he has PTSD, and so he could probably handle an apartment. But a lot of the times homeless people are, they have some serious mental health issues that perhaps they should have care on. They might need some supervision on a daily basis and stuff, and it's a shame that they're not getting it. I mean, I understand what Geraldo Rivera and those people were trying to do, but you need to make the situations better where they are getting the care, not take the care away from them. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so this guy has PTSD, and he's it's not working out at home either, because he likes hanging out in the hospital, and so he's back in. And so the guy says, oh, I have a solution, we'll give you a job. And it's like, okay, so then he starts screaming about the bullets flying and stuff. I mean, really, it's interesting to see how right-wingers, or maybe not all right-wingers, I don't know, but how people are always, oh, the solution, yeah, let's give them a job, and but sometimes people, maybe it's not a good idea maybe they just need care. Maybe they've been abused so badly, or they've maybe it's diet related. Maybe he needs more care even than just an apartment's not going to do it. He's still going to need proper food, and maybe the nutrients just aren't there at the soup kitchen, or I don't know. Anyway, but I will read this quote from, so I wouldn't recommend this series, because, well, it's propaganda, really. Maybe I'll look on here to see if it's actually funded in full by the Medical Association. Can't tell. So anyway, but I have this quote from Get Shorty Season 2, which was very good and worth watching. And this is the character played by Chris O'Dowd at the point, if you haven't watched it yet, watch it, because I'm going to give some stuff away. So it's at the point where Chris O'Dowd's character is in prison, and he's talking to his friend and co-worker, and he says, let Lawrence take his bow. He's earned it. He makes his own movies, he doesn't compromise, and he's fucking ruthless. I find that shit inspiring. I've been telling myself what we do and what they do in Hollywood is basically the same thing. It's not. A man like Lawrence has no conscience, no honor. Maybe that's what's been holding me back. When I get out, anyone who gets in my way deserves what's coming to them. And honestly, I mean, that pretty much sums it up. In Get Shorty, Chris O'Dowd's character, he's a hitman, right? He's a red, and the Hollywood is mostly yellows, right? And they're both aggressive personality types, and people don't really think about it. But the yellows are thought of as being inspiring. They inspire you to keep going somehow, even though you're exhausted, and I'm sure there was when the slaves were putting the pyramids together, and there was the whip on them, and somehow some yellow was getting them to keep pulling those bricks or whatever. What do you call those blocks? But it's a kind of inspiration. Anyway, but yeah, it's propaganda, and it's not seen as such by, I think, anybody but me, and I don't know why, because it's so obvious.